It's been a little while since McLaren have been any good in F1. I mean, sure, we've had freak incidents like Monza 2021 and the occasional podium on tracks like Imola and the Red Bull Ring, but in terms of a general trend, McLaren haven't been a winning team since before the turbo hybrid era. But I'm writing this video after Lando Norris finished second in the British Grand Prix, and it genuinely looks like McLaren are back to the front. Their recent upgrade package has gained them nearly a whole second per lap, and it's put them just 2/10 behind Red Bull on 1 lap pace. They were comfortably the second fastest team in the race, with Oscar Piastri sadly being denied the chance to make a McLaren double podium by a late safety car. I've watched F1 since around 2017, and McLaren has always been my favourite team for the whole time. Now, with the exception of maybe 2020, McLaren have always been a quite average team, and so whenever the team has a good result, I'm always a bit sceptical. I try not to get myself too excited because chances are it's just a track that suited the car better, or the other team's cars worse. However, after the Austrian and British Grand Prix, I genuinely do feel excited about this. So is it just a fluke, or are McLaren genuinely back? Let's talk about it. In November 2022, McLaren were coming to the end of a pretty average season. A string of finishes outside the points for Daniel Ricciardo perhaps made things look worse than they were, but the 159 points they scored in 2022 was a long way off the 275 they scored in 2021. Throughout the opening rounds, McLaren struggled with brake issues, and it took quite some time to get them under control. According to McLaren's then team principal Andreas Seidel, the time they spent fixing the issue meant they had less time to work on the MCL60 for this year. The team were unusually downbeat at the launch of the MCL60 in February, and sadly come pre-season testing it looked like they were right. New team principal Andrea Stella admitted that they'd missed their development targets, but he made it clear that there would be mid-season improvement, and I think that's what we're seeing now. The start of the season couldn't really have been much worse for McLaren. Piastri was knocked out in Q1 and Norris was knocked out in Q2. In the race, Oscar had been making moves and was running 12th place from 18th on the grid when an electrical problem forced him to retire, making him the first F1 rookie to not score points on debut since Nikita Mazepin. Things were hardly better on Norris's side of the garage either, with a pneumatic issue in the engine forcing him to pit every 10 laps to top it up. If this was in the middle of the season, I doubt McLaren would have bothered to keep him out on track after 6 pit stops, but they needed data to improve their car and they wouldn't be able to get it if the car wasn't on track. After an entirely new floor was brought in for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, both cars were knocked out of Q1 in Miami, which was the first time that had happened to McLaren since 2018. Things seemed to be getting better in Monaco though, as when rain came in the race, both McLarens were the fastest on track, which is most likely thanks to the McLaren's ability to heat up its tyres faster. They scored points with both cars in the race, and then came Spain. Things were really starting to look up in Catalonia, and with the benefit of a damp qualifying session, Lando Norris qualified 3rd, with Piastri making it into Q3 as well. However, we might have got too excited about this result, because Norris had his front wing broken by Lewis Hamilton in turn 2 and Piastri struggled with tyre wear, leading to both cars finishing out of the points again. Canada came and went, and then after a 2-week break came the Austrian Grand Prix. McLaren had originally planned for a big upgrade package to be fitted for the British Grand Prix, but when they realised they'd have some of the parts ready for one car in Spielberg, they made the decision to give them to Lando to try out. And boy did they work. Oscar Piastri qualified 13th with the old car in a result that was pretty typical for McLaren. His time in Q2 was a 105.605, and based on Lando stereotypically being about 2/10 faster than Oscar in quali, we should have been expecting a 105.405. However, Lando's time was 4/10 faster than that, and his Q3 lap was a 104.658, almost a full second faster than Piastri's. In the sprint, Norris's P3 start sadly ended in a P9 finish after his car went into anti-stall on the exit of turn 3 on the first lap, but nonetheless it was clear that the upgrades had worked. In the Grand Prix, Lando held on to his P4 qualifying and was behind just the Red Bulls and one Ferrari by the checkered flag. And then came the British Grand Prix. McLaren showed up to the race in this beautiful chrome livery, and they certainly didn't waste it. The upgrades that Lando had on his car were now fitted to both cars, and the team had brought another chunk of upgrades which are also fitted to both, leaving both cars in the exact same specification. Neither driver really showed much pace in free practice, with a large portion of it spent with Flovis paint all over the car to find out if the upgrades were working and to discover how best to set up the car to maximise its qualifying pace. Right from Q1 it was clear the McLarens were quick, with Lando Norris going fastest of all. In Q2 it was a similar story with Piastri in 2nd and Norris in 3rd. And then by the end of Q3 they qualified 2nd and 3rd on the grid, with Piastri just 1/10 of a second away from Norris, showing just how much he's improved as a driver alongside the upgrades to the car. After a poor start from Verstappen on Sunday, Norris took the lead of the race and it was very nearly a McLaren 1-2 with Piastri nearly passing Max as well. Lando led the race for 5 laps before the pace of the Red Bull shone through and Max got past before driving off into the distance like he usually does. In races gone by, it would be around 5 laps in that the tyres start to go off for McLaren, especially after an intense fight for the lead. But that didn't seem to happen at all. Both cars were able to take the mediums 30 laps, but sadly for Oscar Piastri, he'd just pitted for hard tyres when the safety car came out for Magnussen's burning Haas. With softs for Hamilton compared to hards for Piastri on the restart, there was no chance to get him back. The race finished with Verstappen taking a record equaling 11th win on the trot for Red Bull, but Lando was able to hold off Lewis Hamilton for 18 laps to take second place. Piastri should have been third, but was fourth through no fault of his own or the team's, rounding out what I think has been McLaren's best race weekend in a long time. And you know what the best thing about this result is? McLaren still have upgrades to come in Hungary. Those 2 weeks can't go by fast enough for me. So is this just a fluke? It certainly doesn't seem like it. But Lando Norris made it clear in an interview that they won't necessarily be as strong as this for every remaining race. He told BBC Sport that while their car is great in the high-speed corners, which Silverstone has quite a lot of, the car is still quite poor in the slow corners, which sadly for us McLaren fans are quite common in Hungary. It's clear the upgrades have worked, because if they hadn't then they wouldn't be talking about them. But don't get too excited just yet, because Hungary will showcase the slow speed performance of the car, which Lando Norris said is pretty terrible. Andrea Stella said the team is looking forward to Hungary though, because the range of different corners at the Hungaroring will give them a much more comprehensive view of where the team stands relative to the others. As well as that, it's expected to be hotter, meaning McLaren might struggle with tyre wear. But this isn't a fluke as such. There are very few tracks on the calendar that are full of slow speed corners, like the Hungaroring is. We have tracks like Spa, Italy and Japan all coming up before the end of September, and I'm sure that McLaren will spend plenty of time looking at data from Hungary to figure out how to make the car even better for the remainder of the season. Oscar Piastri is getting better with every race he enters, and I'm sure it won't be long before he's trading places with Lando Norris to maximise McLaren's points from every race weekend. I honestly don't know many people who don't want McLaren to be successful, because at least from who I've spoken to, I think they're almost a universally popular team, with a driver lineup you just can't dislike. Whether they have what it takes to challenge Red Bull in years to come remains to be seen, but everything seems to be going in the right direction. Once the team gets the poor slow speed corners and high tyre wear under control, I honestly think they could challenge Red Bull for championships. Of course, I'm making it sound a bit easier than it is, but Red Bull can use their wind tunnel for just 66% of the time McLaren can, thanks to the testing restrictions. So McLaren truly have the chance to catch up now. If you want something to keep you busy while you wait for the Hungarian Grand Prix, then why not use my link for a 30-day free trial for Brilliant? The first 200 of you to sign up with it will also get 20% off an annual subscription. So what is Brilliant? Brilliant has been a lifesaver for me. I recently applied to a well-known flight training school based in London Gatwick, and I had to sit a whole load of assessments as part of my selection. These tests included maths, physics, and a lot of problem solving, and so I decided to use Brilliant to brush up on the skills I needed. The simple but informative nature of Brilliant's courses allowed me to access the relevant information without the added waffle of going through textbooks or Wikipedia, and it was presented to me in a way which I was able to easily commit to memory by using real-life examples which I could imagine while sitting my tests. Thanks to Brilliant's everyday maths course, I was able to pass the initial assessments, and I've now been invited for an interview. I've been told to brush up on my knowledge of all things aviation before it, and fortunately for me, Brilliant has several sections within their physics of the everyday course which are all about wings, propulsion and weather. If I pass this interview, then I know who to thank. Brilliant are always adding new courses for us to enjoy, so whether it's for a new job, a final exam, or just making yourself a better person, Brilliant has you covered. If you use my link, brilliant.org/John Warren, then you'll get a 30-day free trial, and the first 200 of you to check out will get 20% off an annual subscription. Thanks to Brilliant for sponsoring this video, and thanks to you for supporting the people who support me.